Well, welcome to Walking in Spirit and Truth. We are both here in separate locations. And who am I saying we both?
Two
My
places.
name is what?
Two
My
places.
two places. My name is Sandi Craig, and that is
John Craig.
John Craig, and we are your hosts for Walking in Spirit and Truth. Who are we? We do a lot of things here at the Messianic Lamb Network, but we also pastor a congregation in Amarillo, Texas called Life of Worship. And we're going to be talking to you guys a little bit about that tonight, somewhere in the program, maybe at the end, maybe at the beginning. I don't know, maybe a little both. But our services we have our Torah portion study at 2 p.m. Central, and we are live on YouTube at the Life of Worship Amarillo YouTube channel. You should tune in there, subscribe, and make sure you know that whenever we're on and watch us. But we also have it on Zoom as well. And then our main services, our encounter services, are at 5 p.m. Central, and they are on YouTube. And our tour studies on Monday night, Tour Talk, is only on Zoom, but it's there, and you can sure watch us from there and from Zoom, and let us know, and we'll get you in, and you can join in on the conversation. But we have a few other things coming up. We have our Seder, that is Passover Seder, that is going to be the March 27th. And you are welcome to join us if you're in the area. We would love to have you. And you can find out more information on that on our website. If you will put the website up there, that would be a great help. And then we have our Shavuot Weekend, and that's at Lake Paladura, the same place we Sukkot. And it's going to be amazing. We have Friday through Sunday, and we would love to have you join us there as well. And you can sure register online at lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Give me a buzz, call me, email me, whatever you need to do to come and join us for that. But we also have something else coming up a little further down the line, and that is our Sukkot of 2021, and that is Roar from Zion. And we are getting all the details up on our website as we speak, and we would love for you to join us. We have several speakers, but those are including Dr. Dina Dye and Eddie Chumney will be at Roar from Zion, Sukkot, and from Life of Worship, and that will be at Lake Paladura as well. And you don't want to miss out. We have a total of 46 RV spots. So when those are gone, there's a second area, but it's not right directly on the campground that you possibly could use, but we're going to focus on those 46 spots first. So it is first come. And so we want you to join us. A lot of fun things going on there. And you can find out more details on the website. I am working on putting all of that up even as we speak. You can register online, or you can email me and I can send you a form. Do it either way. And anyway, that's a lot of stuff that's going on at Life of Worship. But we want to welcome you here tonight because we are excited that you've joined us for our continued study on Psalm 91. And before I jump in, I want to also let you know that we are going to have a Craig report tonight. And here's the special instructions in case you missed them later. We'll give them to you a second time. When this part of Walking in Spirit and Truth is over, our second part will be broadcast only on MessianicLambRadio.com or the Messianic Lamb Network. You need to go to the website, and there you will see the Craig report, only there, and see it in its full. And let me tell you, you probably want to tune in because there's a lot happening. And I know we have been studying and meeting with people and checking sources and other sources. And that information that Mr. Craig is going to give is you need to be in the know. That's all I can say. So when this part of the program is over, sign off. Don't worry, we're not over, but you need to go to MessianicLambRadio.com and join us there for the rest of Walking in Spirit and Truth concerning the Craig Report. Did you want to say anything before we... Did you want to say anything since I've done all the talking?
I think you got everything in there. And I do want to mention this is that we're continuing to minister to inmates in Texas and in other parts of the country. And there's a big cost to doing that. And if you would like to join us in that ministry, we would certainly appreciate not only prayer support, but financial support in doing that. And you can go to our website there at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org and give a gift to help us out with the what we do is we send out Torah portions and other print materials to these inmates. And when they're asking for a Bible, we do our best to provide them with a Bible that has a Hebraic roots, or a good study Bible they can use. And we also make contact with these inmates and speak to them on the phone and to encourage them. And when they get out, we also have a ministry where we want to make sure these inmates are being brought back into society as productive members of society. And so many of these guys, they're just good guys. The system has been used against them, and the only thing they could do is plea out and end up getting these terms and these sentences where they probably should never been there. So we want to make sure these guys have advantages, and we want to minister to them. We want to speak words of encouragement to them, but we want to give them the word. And they're studying out. Those guys are sharp, and they're learning, and they're growing, and Yehovah is changing their lives. We would love for you to join us and be part of this ministry to establish a well-rooted ministry within these prison systems and in their own individual lives. And then these guys are spreading the word, and they're saying, hey, there's a ministry that wants to help us and send materials, and other guys are getting in contact with us. So it's word of mouth within the system as they get transferred around from one location to another. Word is getting out. We need your help. Honestly, we need your help to help fund it. And some of these guys never have the ability. They don't have family, or they don't have finances or funds from any other source. And so they don't have money to buy any type of commissary, which includes basic hygiene and basic food supplements, because now these guys are learning to eat clean. And a lot of the food that is given in those prisons is not clean. It's pork. And so what's left, you get a few sides and you go hungry for a while, and hopefully some meal is going to give you some substance. So the only other way they can get some nutrients is to be able to go to commissary or get e-com, what's called e-com is, and order food in that way. So help us out so we can help these guys and be a blessing to them. Go to our website, www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org, and give your very best. Give a donation. Say, hey, we want to help out with your prison ministry. Unmute there, Sandy.
Absolutely. And we would love to hear from you on that, and just partner with us at Life of Worship so we can continue to minister in many ways. And, we do it together. And that's the one thing, is we need each other. And maybe you aren't the one that can go and do that, but then you team up with a ministry who does do that, and you work and you do it together. Anyway, that is our spiel on that. But we want to jump right into Psalm 91. And I want us to read verses 1-3. And if you can, get out your word even as we speak, and get ready to continue to mark it up, and as we learn and grow together. And I want to welcome Tammy. Hey, it's good to see you. Tammy is actually part of Life of Worship. And of course, it doesn't matter if you don't live here. She actually lives in Amarillo, Texas too. But it doesn't matter if you don't. You can be a part of Life of Worship and not live in Amarillo. That's for sure. So would you go ahead and read the first 3 verses for us, Mr. Craig?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was going to say this, in case you're listening, catching this on the archive. Not only can you catch it here on the Messianic Lamb Network, you can catch it on our own YouTube channel at Life of Worship Amarillo, as well as our Facebook page with Messianic Lamb Radio, and over at Life of Worship Amarillo. So we'd like for you to join us there. Check us out. It is Psalm 91, beginning with verse 1. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to Yahweh, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. I'll get it out. And from the deadly pestilence.
All right. So I want us we're going to go on. I know, lo and behold, we're going to go on to verse 2. But isn't it amazing, just in verse 1, how much Yahweh's reminded us how he wants to protect us in the midst of whatever's going on. That's what's so amazing. And this whole psalm is rich and full of that. But I want us to we're going to be looking at refuge and fortress this evening. And makase, which is refuge, is Strong's number H4268. And so write that down if you're taking notes. I will say of Yehovah, he is my refuge and my fortress, my Yah, in whom I will trust. Now, just briefly, when you think about this, before we get into more of the Hebrew, what we say, when speaking, think about the power of your words. I will say, did it say I will think? I will think of the Lord. He's my refuge and my fortress. It does not say that at all. It says, I will say. I will say. That means that spoken word which has power. Remember, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And unfortunately, we as people have lived far too long making our tongues the tools of death instead of life. How do we make them tools of life? We speak his word. We speak his word. We remind him of his word. We declare his word because he is our fortress and our refuge and so much more. So say it because it releases his strength. It releases his power. It actually somewhat bursts this new beginning in our relationship with him because we're saying something. When we say it enough, it gets in our spirit. Just like you've heard the old adage, if you say it enough, you're going to believe it. Well, maybe it's time we start saying the word enough that we're going to actually believe it. Because when we speak his word and not death, what it does is it transforms the circumstances of our testing and based on what we declare. So when we're in the midst of it, declare his word. I will say of Yahovah, he is my refuge and my fortress, my Yah, in whom will I trust, my Elohim. So what we say reveals. What does it reveal? It reveals something about us. It reveals who or what we actually believe in. Who do we believe to be the most important person in our lives? And Yahweh is not a person, but who is most important in our lives? Who is worthy of obedience? Who is worthy of praise? Well, it's Yehovah. It's Yahweh. There is no other. I will say of Yah, he is my refuge and my fortress. And the next word, when we say that, of course, the English translates it as the Lord. And when you think of that, it's the right hand of Yah's power. And it's completing something through revelation. And he wants us to pay attention. The revelation is coming. It's coming through the nail or the hook that connects us from earth to heaven. It's Yeshua. I will say of Yeshua, he is my refuge and my fortress. He's revealing his power to us through Yeshua, and he wants us to realize that it's Yeshua's work. It's a done deal. He's already won the victory. We enforce it. He is the ultimate covenant maker and keeper. It's Yeshua himself, the one who walked through the pieces, the one in the burning bush, the one in the cloud, the fire. It is him himself. Now, we're not getting into a lot of detail yet, but the next word I want us to look at, and when we say of Yahweh, Yeshua, he is our refuge, we're saying what? Just off the top of our head, without breaking the Hebrew apart too much, we're saying that he's our protector, and he's the one who separates us from the enemy. Remember when we discussed shield and buckler, those terms show that he is the one that stands between us and the enemy. He's the one that deflects the arrows, the fiery arrows that try to be shot our direction. But here we say he's the one who protects us and separates us from the enemy. He holds us. He holds us in his heart. For he knew us before we were ever born. He's loved us. He's been calling to us. He's been waiting for us at the door because he is the door. So he holds us and he gives us support when we need it and encouragement through his word. And we can receive revelation when we've been dwelling in the secret place, that place of intimacy. We hear the secrets of his heart. And so we can see more clearly. He is our refuge. And then just to top it off before we go to parallels, he is our fortress. Yah is our fortress. We're saying he's our righteousness. It's Yeshua. It's Yeshua who went to the stake, who went to the cross, and he connects us. He connects us to Yah. He connects us to heaven because, as I said, he is the door. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the bridegroom. He became what? He took on the curse so that we could be free from the curse. He took on disease and bore stripes so that we could walk in healing. He became poor so that we might be rich. He became, and I'm not talking about a prosperity gospel, folks, but that has far more reaching implications than a pocketbook, though our pocketbook can be a part as well. But he took on all that sin, all our sin, so that we have a future and a hope, so that we have an inheritance of his kingdom. And then we say Elohim, our Yah, our God. We are saying we believe he is supreme, that he is the great I am, that he's our teacher, he's our deliverer, he's our instructor, he's the one who brings us revelation. He is Yah, and it's his right hand, his power, and his truth, his hidden truth, his Torah, his word that takes care of every area of our lives. Okay. Now, we're probably going to spend more than 2 shows on this verse, because I want us to go into the parallelism between fortress and refuge. I'm not sure that we're going to have time for that tonight, because I know we have a good report that we need you guys to listen to. But I want us to go to, I want us to look at the word makase, and it, as I said, it's Strong's H4268, and I want us to break it down just a little bit. Okay, so we see the first occurrence was actually Job 24:8. So I'm going to have Mr. John Craig turn to Job 24:8, and I'll bring him back in, and I just stick him out. That was probably silly, wasn't it? All right, so I'll add him to our stream, Job 24:8. And in that, we might see, remember, the first occurrence of a word helps us understand how that word should be used in its definition, in its context. Now, there's also another way to look at the whole of the word. There's many ways that the understanding of a word can come forth, as well as family words that are spelled with the same Hebrew letters, whether they're in order or not, and also those words with the same number or gematria. All those can add meaning to the word that you're looking at and bring depth to its understanding. So with that being said, let's read Job 24:8.
Job 24:8 says, "They are wet with the mountain rains, and they hug the rock for want of a shelter."
Okay, so that's the first usage of makase. So a concrete noun, what does it mean? It means refuge, from Strong's H2620, and that is a primitive root meaning to seek refuge, but it has 3 letters. And again, learn your Hebrew alphabet, Aleph Bet, because each of those letters has in-depth meaning, and that's a het, a sheen, and a hey. Okay, so het, what do we have with a het? It's the wall. Thus, it's outside. It also means to divide or half. Okay, so think about that. This is going to add meaning to what this word is, because we're looking at it as what? A refuge. So let's continue. So the next word, sheen, it's the thorn, thus grab, hate, or protect. So here we have this sin as well. And so we have the wall, thus outside, divide in half with the het. And then with the sin, we have the thorn, thus grab, hate, and protect. Now, let's look at the hay. Now, what's the hay? It's the man with raised arms. You see that when you look at the paleo. And so it means thus look, reveal, wonder. It also means worship and breath. So all of these letters bear meaning, and then you put them together and you have something that means something for sure. The story, then the wall, which is the het, which protects, seen, is found, hey, in the sense of pointing out and discovery. So the wall which protects is found. The wall which protects is found. So think about that for a minute. In English, our word house comes from this root. Isn't that interesting that the word house comes from its root? So think about a wall which protects and is found. That's a refuge, guys. A refuge, a wall that protects and is found. Even in the very letters, it tells us what we're looking at. And Camille says it's the Psalmic, and you're right, because I'm looking at the letter. I have it wrong in my notes. So thank you, Camille. And by the way, it's great seeing you. So it is so important that we understand this refuge. It is so important that we understand all the words that we've been seeing in Psalm 91 thus far has been telling us over and over that he is there surrounding us and protecting us. If we will walk and choose to stay in his shadow. Remember, we talked about that last week, which is so much more than just this fleeting thing that we look at when we look at our own shadow. Okay, so we are going to delve more into that as I said, when we look at the parallelism, but I want us to look at fortress for a moment before we go forward.
I was going to say something about that refuge. It gives a sense that wall of protection that's found is something that cannot be found in the natural. So in the sense that, yes, Yahweh's our refuge, but it's a sense that if we're spiritually blind, we won't find it. If our walk is with Yehovah is blinded, so to speak, because we've got junk in our lives, we've got stuff in the way, and when we're looking for refuge, we won't see it because it requires a revelation of the place to go to. It requires a revelation. And I think a lot of times when we're going through something hard, we're having some hardships, that sometimes we don't feel like we're in the refuge. And maybe it's because we're blinded. We don't have revelation yet as where to find that. And so our heart's not still. It's not in shalom. It's not in peace. And so we've got to stop and shake everything off and say, wait a minute, Father, I need to refocus because I'm not in your shelter. Things are happening that I don't like, and I need your protection, and I need to find it. And I need to get right so I can find that secret place.
I agree. And that's really, really good. And all I can say is the more you study out this in depth, the more that I can say it's so revelational of Yah's character and who he is and who he wants to be for us, if we will allow it. And that's really what it boils down to. Will we allow it? Because so often we still try to do things our own way, find our own protection, separate ourselves from the truth in ways, and rely on our own thoughts in ways, and instead of running to him. We had a gentleman in our congregation that he's a teacher in our congregation, and his daughter happened to not be feeling perfectly the other night. And I said something, did you get the oil of oregano? And he said, well, we have that, but first we pray. And of course I know that. And I agree. First you pray. But sometimes even believers need to be reminded, people of faith need to be reminded of what they do first. Not that I have forgotten that, but my conversation, I should have maybe expressed that first, even though I wasn't saying that I didn't, but it was true. Yahweh is the answer, period. You're very stoic over there. I'm waiting for.
No, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to the story. Yeah, absolutely. I was also thinking, oil of oregano is the medicinal hyssop that's spoken of in the word. But what goes first is always that prayer. I just, it's very important, extremely important to keep those priorities straight.
That's right. That's right. Now, as we go and look at fortress, I want you to understand that in the Psalm 91 itself, we see a lot of parallels. We see two words that are together in phrasings, and that's parallelism. Okay. And there's a number of metaphors that actually refer to Yahweh's protection of his people. He's our shield. He's our fortress. He's our hiding place. He's our keeper. He's our refuge. He's our shelter. He's our shade. He's our stronghold. He is. And in many of the passengers, passages that use the metaphors of Yah as our protector, we see those titles or those words used, as I said, right beside each other. So we are going to look at them a little bit, at least in part right now, together. So it's going to be helpful to display them even together. If you have anything out, like your Strongs or something else, if you want to pull it out. And Camille, Tammy, I know you guys there are very great with Hebrew. If you have something, please, please, please contribute, and we will speak it and maybe even put it up there on the screen so everybody can see it. So unlike Europe and unlike Asia and unlike America has very little understanding of refuges and fortresses. Yes, we do have a little bit of history of that. But when you look at other nations around the world who are much older, they have those fortresses of old, those strongholds of the past. And maybe in the West, where settlers might have gathered during times of unrest, there was fortresses and things we understand, but there's a greater understanding in other parts of the world about these words and what they meant physically in someone's life. But in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament days, especially before the Romans brought peace, I'm quote unquote, to the area, a refugee or fortress was something that they needed. Remember, even the cities were walled. Why? And when we're talking walls, we're not talking a wall that we would understand it. We're talking walls that chariots, multiple, could fit across. Now, folks, those are some walls. We have no understanding of that here in the United States. So here we go. With a fortress, which we consider walled, if you had an unwalled village, they were often clustered around walled cities or walled stronghold cities, where residents of the region, they would flee to those places in times of war. That's where they would run to. So they would gather in the walled places. Ooh, where should we gather when we are facing opposition from the enemy? Of course, he's our strong tower. He's our fortress. He's our refuge, just as you just spoke of as well, John, about the walls that protect us, right?
Yes.
So here we go. The people from villages without walls would run to the walled city, the fortified place, and that's where they would flee in times of war. High towers and ramparts could be defended against a force many times their size. And so there are many words used to describe fortresses, and they're used as metaphors for Yah's defense and his protection. So we're going to go over a few of them right now before we go forward. And the machaseh, the place of refuge, shelter. And as we said, it was from the verb chaseh, to seek refuge, flee for protection. Okay. Now, fortress, masada, it's fatness, stronghold, fortress. And it's related to Metzad, which means mountain height or summit. Fortress, castle. Now, immediately, and I wish that you had these pictures with you so you could stick them up on the screen, but I think of Masada. What am I thinking of? Go ahead.
Well, let me see if I can find a picture to put up real quick.
So. Okay, well, but our pictures were really great that we took when we were in Israel. I wish you had those. Sure. Because Masada is a fortress. It was the last stronghold in Israel during the time of the Romans, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. So here we think about Herod, the great fortress plateau palace that was near the Dead Sea. It comes from this word, and you're going to get stuck here because I want you to read 1 Samuel 23. And we're going to look at verses 14, 19, and 29. 1 Samuel 23, verses 14, 19, and 29.
Okay. 1 Samuel 13?
23, verses 14, 19, and 29. So 3 different verses, if we will like that.
Okay, 23, 14.
Yes.
After whom has the king of Israel come out? No, I'm sorry. 23. Getting the right chapter. And David stayed in the wilderness in the strongholds and remained in the hill country in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God did not deliver him into his hand. In verse 19, then Ziphites came up to Saul to Gibeah, saying, is David not hiding with us in the strongholds at Horesh on the hill of Hachilah, which is on the south of Yeshimon? And then what was the last verse? 24?
29.
29.
Yes.
And David went up from there and stayed in the strongholds of En-gedi.
All right. And then I think of En-gedi. I love En-gedi. So Camille reminds us that this means behold the wall that surrounds. Again, I think of the Psalmic, which she corrected me on earlier, and the circle and the form. And we've talked about so many things when we've talked about that letter before. And so thank you, Camille. But so we're looking at these verses in 1 Samuel. So we see David. What is he doing? He's hiding from Saul. Where is he hiding? He's hiding in natural mountain strongholds, Matsad, in the wilderness near En-gedi. Okay, there we see Masada. Okay, do you have anything a little closer than that you can find here momentarily?
Yes.
Just keep looking, and because there's a picture of what we see in Israel, and it's a big tourist place too, and there's so much there. If you really wanted to take it in, you need to spend hours there, and we didn't get that, but I would have liked that. Okay, and also we may just real quickly look at Strong Tower. Well, Strong Tower is Migdal, and it's a great or tall place. It's a tower, and it's from the word Gadol, which means grow up, become great. And it's probably deriving from the early times when the tower was the largest or the greatest structure in town, strong tower. So here we have mountain strongholds, strongholds that are walled cities, fortresses, refuges. And here we have this other word, strong tower, and we'll get more into that later. But the strong high tower. Now look at that, because you're going to see its relational value with refuge as well. Misgab. So we have Migdal, Mitzada, Mitzad, Makaseh. We have all these words that are coming together, and they're, as it was said earlier, we refer to Yahweh as these things. And there's another picture.
It's a depiction of it, but that kind of shows what the original buildings were.
Of what it could have looked like. So when we look at Misgab, we see a high place, a refuge. Here's that word again, and it's from the verb sagab, which means to be inaccessibly high. Isn't it interesting that when we're looking at fortresses, they were normally placed in places where the view would be easy. It would be easy to see an enemy approaching, I would say, because we keep referring to high towers, strong towers, and heights was what I'm trying to say, mountains or plateaus. So all these words keep coming up, and they have something in common, and there's a height to them. And so I want you to think about that for a moment. So when we look at the high place or refuge from Sagab, inaccessibly high, it is used in Psalm 91:14 with the connotation to set on high and to defend and to protect. So we'll look at that more later. And anyway, with that being said, just a little bit of background before we continue breaking the words down. I want us to talk a little bit about Masada and about these words and this place that we're speaking of. Maybe you guys, not everybody knows everything. Not everybody has been to Israel. Not everybody's had the privilege of going to Israel. But so let's talk about this for a minute, because it was a stronghold, and it was a refuge, and it played in a very, very important part in the history, the more recent history, when you look at the history and all. But Masada it's an ancient stone fortress in Israel, and it's located high above the Dead Sea on a tall rocky mesa or plateau is what I probably would call it more like here. And It's actually a park now. People, as we said, people go up and they look at it and they get to go into some of the old buildings. And it's actually about 840-acre complex. And there you see the journey up the stairs. Was Masada where we rode the
Yes. Yes, we rode the
called?
gondola up. Yes.
Okay. So all those people are walking, and that's quite a journey, I guess. But we did not do that, right?
Yeah, we actually, this is right at the where you come up to and get off the gondola, and they made this platform to walk over to the entrance. So, but otherwise, those staircases there on the side, it's actually been built up for people to go visit, but it's kind of the path. If you're going to walk it, that's how you walk down or walk up through that direction.
Right.
But this is the a little bit closer.
All right. So when we look at this fortress of Masada that we call Masada, isn't it interesting that the very word itself is fortress? You know, that's a fortress. It's fortress. If you don't know Hebrew, you would think, well, that fortress is Masada, but yet it's fortress in itself. But it would have had a very strategic position because actually it would have been superior to most, as I said earlier, because you could see all around what was coming at you. And this word also has the meaning, when you look at Masada, it also has the meaning of a net or hunt, because when an enemy enters into an attack range, it's because you have the fortress. It's almost as if the enemy is entering into a snare or a net or a trap that you've laid before him, because you are in the strong tower, you are in the refuge, you are in the fortress. Now, I want you to understand that being in Yehovah allows us the advantage, because he is the one that fights for us. When we are in covenant with him, that means his enemies are our enemies, but it also means that our enemies are his, and he fights for us. So isn't that an amazing thing, that when we rest in him, the enemy can't win? Now, he may try to position himself and cause us to see things so close to us that we don't see the bigger picture, so that we think that we're losing battles. But that's not really the case, because as we're resting in him and we're relying on him and we're walking under the shadow of his wings, we are following in his perfect will, and we're not going to be, we trust in our King, and we're not going to be disappointed. So think about the word having that meaning of net or hunt as well. So after, I want you to think of the revolt that happened in 66 AD, okay? Because I'll give you a little bit more detail on it. If I can find the right stuff. So hold on just here. All right. Hold on a minute. All right. I keep pulling up the wrong thing. I hate that. You can fill in while I'm looking for my stuff.
Well, one thing about Masada is very interesting, is it was very difficult to breach. I mean, they were completely protected up there in that place until the Romans built that siege.
Hey. I didn't want you to talk about all of it. I just wanted you to feel, because I was going to get to that. I just
want to get there. Okay.
Anyway, so we also understand that this word means strong foundation and support in Hebrew. So here we have Herod the Great, king of Judea, who ruled from 37 to 4 BC. He's the one who built this place. He built it like a castle, a complex. And it had, you would think there was no water, which, I mean, water didn't just get up there naturally, by the way. That didn't happen, but it was built so it did have a big supply, and thus it did become a stronghold for the people. Josephus Flavius, the commander of the Galilee during the Great Revolt of the 1st century AD, chronicled the known history of Masada, and he said that this fort was built by Jonathan the high priest, who was thought to be a Hasmonean King Alexander Janus, who ruled 103 to 76. Okay, that's a whole bunch of facts that if you're a trivia person or if you just want to know your history, there you go. But were no definitive ruins have been discovered from that actual time. That's just recorded in other books of history. So we need to always understand the advantages of this picture of a fortress for us that stands today in Israel, because it was also an escape place for Herod, a winter escape actually, and it was a haven for him, and it had storerooms and it had cisterns and it even had a big well. And after Herod's death, the annexation of Judea, and the Romans, they built a garrison. So here we go. In that revolt that happened, many of the Jewish warriors stayed behind in Masada. They faced the attacks by 8 battalions that were coming against them. And over again, they really defeated them and how? They used stones, they used bows, they used arrows. And they were under siege, but they even displayed, they would hang their clothes out as they washed them, because when you're under siege, the whole point is that you lock a walled city in so that there's no escape. And so people might starve or thirst or die of thirst or things like that. But the supplies were so abundant that there were at least 4 years of supplies. And the water was still so abundant for them, even though that was being laid siege to, that they could wash their clothes. Now, we all know when we're running short of water, probably that's one of the activities we probably wouldn't do. But they would hang them out there so that the Romans could see, hey, you don't have us. You don't have us, because we're in the fortress. We're in the stronghold. And it's recorded that the Romans saw that, and they probably were incensed somewhat. But who would have thought that at some point after that, they built a ramp that could directly break the gate of Masada? And I picture different things that you may have seen in movies or things like that, where you see these ramps or these battalion where they break the doors, they break the gates. And remember, gates in a city, gates in a place represented where most of the activity was done. Now here at the fort, that gate was the entrance, right? All right. So let's look at Psalm 31, 1 through 3. Psalm 31, 1 through 3. Everybody, I always say I wish we had audio with everybody that was with us, because I'd love to hear the pages turning. I like that. Psalm 31, 1 through 3.
I'm getting there. Psalm 31, 1 through 3. In thee, O Yahweh, I have taken refuge. Let me never be ashamed. In thy righteousness, deliver me. Incline thine ear to me. Rescue me quickly. Be thou to me a rock of strength, a stronghold to save me. For thou art my rock and my fortress. For thy name's sake, thou wilt lead me and guide me.
All right. And of course, we have, since you are my rock and my Masada. So there's that word one more time. And on the eve of Pesach, on the eve of Passover, the wall of Masada stronghold, when did it happen? That's the time it was smashed, and the Roman army barged in. And what did they find? They found empty vessels. They found corpses. That's all they found, except for, I believe there was, one or two women and a couple children, or just one woman and some children. I'm not sure the exact on that, but there were a few people that lived to tell the story, because what had happened, rather than being captured, rather than choose to end their lives as slaves to the Roman Empire, they did a last stand in the fortress. And the second temple had already been destroyed. Masada was it was the last standing place for the Jews. And it seemed that this people who made a covenant with God, they were like, I'm not going to go into enslavement again. And so they took their own lives. And that's a sad note to it. But although Masada fell, the real fortress itself was never shaken. The fortress in itself, that's why we have something to look at. So it was discovered about 1955, but it stands as as a reminder of what a fortress looks like and represents. Now, according to Josephus's account in the War of the Jews, he said they had died in the belief that they left not a soul of them alive to fall into the Roman hands. The Romans advanced to the assault, seeing none of the enemy, but on all sides the awful solitude and flames within the silence. They were all at a loss to conjecture what had happened here, encountering the mass of slain. Instead of exulting as over enemies, they admired the nobility of their resolve. Those are pretty poetic words, actually, when you think about them as describing what actually happened there at Masada. But I'm not saying that as an example of how we live, because it's not. We have Yeshua. And we have Yeshua, and he is our strong fortress and tower, right?
Yeah,
He is the one. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would have to say that it would be very sobering. When you look at this siege ramp right here, I mean, they had to build it from the base all the way up, and this is after, 2,000 years of erosion, but they would have had to build this huge amounts of tons and tons of dirt and rocks to be able to get up there to the edge of this plateau, or this mesa is really what it is. And to get up there after all that work to find that these people who had held out for so long were no longer a threat because they had taken their lives. The very fact that they had to spend, probably in our terms, millions and millions of dollars in manpower and materials, and I mean the materials all around for the dirt, but the manpower itself, the sheer, without modern equipment to build up this would have taken years. I don't know how long, but it would have taken a tremendous amount of time to build that siege ramp. So
yeah,
you can see what an amazing holdout this was, and how determined the Romans were to go after it as well.
But since we're looking at this, applying it to our lives today, we know the enemy's determined to take care of his mission within each of us. And what is that mission? To steal, to kill, and destroy. And he may try to lay siege ramps and things that would destroy us. But here's the thing. Our fortress, Yahovah himself, is impenetrable. It's only when we allow sin and other things to open doors in our life that we allow the enemy to come in through some sort of chink that we've created. It makes me think of like prisoners using the spoons that you see in jokes of old. They use the spoons to dig in under a wall or something like that. It's when we do that the enemy gets to come in. But if we remain close and we're quick to ask forgiveness and close those doors, our stronghold's impenetrable. And we can trust in him and rely on him. In Psalm 91, every verse is like that. He's reminding us in this day and this hour when everything seems to be going wrong around us, it doesn't matter. We are secure. We are secure because we are in him. I hope you're in him. If you are not in Yeshua, if you don't know him, if you have not surrendered and said, I want to be your servant, your bondservant, of the child of the Most High, then it's time, because you're not going to survive the days ahead without him. I can tell you that right now. You will not. We have to have Yeshua. We have to follow his word, his Torah. We have to be full of the Spirit and walk in discernment, walk in the fruit, walk in the gifts of the Spirit. We have to be light in the midst of darkness. We have to do these things because the days are dark, but his glory is much greater than any of the darkness we could behold. So as we're saying this, we may continue to study this a little bit more next week, but I want can you turn me off on your, please? Thank you. but I want us to understand. Hopefully, John's taking care of that right now. I want us to understand that we've never lost hope. He has got us. He's taking care of us. Now, Camille says that when you look at Masada, it's in the shape of a huge boat. Now, what does that say to you? I think it's very interesting because when I think of a huge boat, I think of the ark. And what happens in the ark? He takes his bride. And in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the destruction, he protects his bride. Now, as the bridegroom who takes his bride, he is the ark, as we are supposed to be the ark, but he is the ark that in the midst of all that's going on, we're protected in him. Thank you, Camille. That was great observance on that. I so appreciate that because think of the huge boat that we have in our history that tells us that we float above the destruction. It's the ark. It's the ark that Moses was laid in as a babe. And yeah, that's called an ark as well, that we as the bride are taken care of. And I love that picture. And as I said, we're going to continue more, but we are out of time for this part of Walking in Spirit and Truth. In fact, I took far more time than I was supposed to today, but hopefully that's okay. Is it okay, John?
Yes. Yeah, we're good.
But we have a really great the Craig report is coming up, but not here on this site. Well, it is you need to go to messianiclambradio.com, and there you are going to find the Craig report, and you need to listen to the current events that are going to be spoken of. We can't do it here, but we can do it there, and we can be real with it. Now, just as a reminder, we have our Passover Seder coming up on March 27th. Please, you can look at our website to check that out. We have our Shavuot Weekend at Lake Paladura, May 21st through 23rd. And we have Sukkot coming up with two of our speakers, but there are more that are coming in that you may know. But Dr. Dina Dye and Eddie Chumney, and that is September 20th through the 28th. I'm sorry, I had to think. And we would love for you to join us. There's more on the website about that. And it is Roar from Zion is our theme. And we would love for you to join us. As I said, there are 46 RV spaces. So you need to take advantage of those. First come, first serve. And we hope to see you in all those occasions. If you're in the Amarillo area, please let us know. Please drop in. We would love to meet all of our family who are listening to us from all around. I want to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Now, Camille and Tammy, since I see your names here, my family here in the Amarillo area, love you girls. And thank you for your help along the way. And for now, why don't you tune in to the messianiclambradio.com so that you can see the Craig Report live.
I also have on there, scrolling the screen there, messianiclamnetwork.com. You can go there.
You can get both places. You can type in either way, and you're going to end up at the same place.
Yeah.
So until then, we want to say shalom. We'll see you in a couple minutes. Just get out and go to messianiclamnetwork.com, messianiclamradio.com. We'll see you there for the Craig Report. Shalom.
Shalom.